In the heart of rainy Seattle, where dreams often dissolve into the fog, a small cafe became the quiet setting for something extraordinary. She was an artist who'd lost her passion. He was a millionaire hiding behind coffee and shadows. Neither planned to fall in love. But night after night, under amber lights and raindrops tapping against windows, their worlds quietly collided. From spilled espresso to whispered truths, this isn't just a story about finding love. It's about finding yourself when you feel unseen. Welcome to this tender tale from True Movement Stories. The rain in Seattle didn't just fall, it whispered. Every drop that slid down the cafe windows carried years of stories, silent heartbreaks, unspoken dreams, and late-night hopes. And inside a little cafe called Bean and Brush, those stories came to life, whether you were ready for them or not. It was the kind of place people stumbled into, and sometimes never left unchanged. Under the amber light, with brush-streaked canvases on the wall and the aroma of espresso curling through the air, Maya Larson, 26, wiped down the counter, just as she did every night. Her golden hair was never quite tied back properly, a few strands always escaping in that perfectly imperfect way that artists have. Her smile, outwardly bright and practiced, didn't convince anyone who looked closely. Behind her eyes lived something broken, something beautiful but broken, a love once lost, a life once painted and full of promise, a mess she thought she'd never clean up again. Hot beverage, the man in the corner. At exactly 6:43 p.m., the door chimed. The bell above the frame chimed not just from sound, but familiarity. Maya didn't have to look up anymore to know his steps, to know the quietly confident gait of the man who always chose the same corner seat, always ordered the same drink, and always left a tip folded like a secret. Ethan Caldwell, coffee enthusiast, late-night customer, and quiet observer, but also something more, something Maya didn't know, because from her side of the counter, he looked like a man nursing quiet thoughts. Maybe a writer, maybe a widower, maybe just someone who liked espresso at night. What she didn't see was the truth behind the simple gray jacket. He wasn't just a regular. He was the CEO of Luxwear, one of the fastest-growing fashion empires in the country. A millionaire, a man whose face had graced glossy magazine spreads, always in tailored suits and buzzwords like visionary, fashion mogul, single father. But here, he wore fatigue like a second skin. Not wealth, not fame, just exhaustion, and eyes that held too much grief for one lifetime. Artist palette, the spill that spoke. That rainy night, Maya was distracted. Again. Her gaze drifted to the half-finished abstract painting she had posted behind the bar. It wasn't for sale. Nothing was. It was a relic of a time when she believed art would save her. Brushstrokes of regret bled across the canvas. Bold colors beneath ghosted outlines. Lost in memory, she poured his espresso without looking. That's when it happened. Crash, splash, silence. The cup tipped. Hot, dark coffee splashed across the counter and directly onto Ethan's jacket. Time froze for her. Heat rose to her cheeks faster than the espresso splattered across his sleeve. "Oh my God. I am so sorry," Maya gasped, her voice breaking. "I'll pay for the cleaning, Ethan blinked, taken by surprise, but then something remarkable happened. He chuckled, lightly, genuinely. "It's just a jacket," he said, brushing it off gently. "But you looked like you were painting something in your head. Want to tell me about it?" It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't forced. It was honesty, curiosity wrapped in kindness. Cloud with rain, the soft invitation. Maya flushed and looked down, heart thudding. I'm not very good at telling stories," she mumbled. Then she half laughed, nervously. "I'm better at making messes." Clearly. Ethan's lips tugged upward, his eyes warm. "Sometimes messes are the best beginnings." He gestured to the abstract painting on the wall behind her, the one she loved and hated. "Did you paint that?" Maya's voice dropped, shy and uncertain. "Yeah, but I stopped painting a long time ago. No one seemed to care." Ethan leaned in just slightly, enough that his words softened even more. "I care." Silence stretched between them, but it didn't feel awkward. Her heart fluttered, not with romance but something rarer, the feeling of being seen. Love letter, the note that changed everything. Later, after Ethan had finished his espresso and quietly steadied the wobbly shelf behind the counter, pretending like he hadn't, he turned to leave. Before he did, he placed a small, folded note next to a generous tip. The note just said, "Your coffee may be messy, but your art isn't." Maya unfolded it that night in the back room, next to her sketchbook. Her fingers trembled slightly, not because of love, because of recognition. And for the first time in years, that made her smile. Soap, a barista with a brush. Maya wasn't just an artist. She was a dropout barista, a dreamer who once said, "I'll make it big," and then got crushed by student debt and abandonment. A woman who traded brushes for coffee pots because the world didn't applaud her canvases. But she still drew when no one was looking. Tiny sketches in the back of butter-stained order sheets. Silhouettes of customers, dreamscapes on napkins. Hidden beauty in a world taught to look away. Man-girl, the father behind the smile. What Maya didn't know yet was that Ethan's presence every night wasn't just about the coffee or the calm atmosphere. It was escape. He was a single dad, raising 2 kids in a world that expected him to lead empires but left him no room to grieve. His wife had died 5 years ago. His daughter, Emma, now 10, loved to paint but never showed anyone her work, afraid she'd never be good enough. His son, Liam, 6, had dreams big enough for 2, mostly centered around becoming a superhero or flying trash-colored dragons. And in all of it, Ethan was just trying to hold it together. That night, Maya overheard something. Ethan was on the phone in the corner, voice low and loving. "Hey, Eminencia, did you finish your painting?" "Yeah, I want to hang it in my office. You know how much I love your little garden scene." Maya's fingers froze mid-wipe. That voice, that warmth, that dad. Something inside her cracked, gently. She hadn't thought about her dad in years. The one who always said her paintings belonged in museums. The one who never got to see her graduate, because she never did. Suddenly, the man in the corner wasn't just a customer anymore. He was real. And without knowing his name, she started caring. Crescent moon shared solitude. That night, Seattle's rain fell like a lullaby. Outside was cold. Inside, 2 people carried matching solitude. They didn't hold hands. They didn't flirt. But a connection was made. Small, fragile, warm. And it began like real stories do, not with a bang, but with an accident, vulnerability, and genuine words.
No filtered perfection.
No cinematic swelling music. Just spilled coffee, kind eyes, and a tiny note that said everything she needed to hear.
Ikare.
They say love doesn't always arrive loud. Sometimes, it slips in like paint strokes on a quiet canvas. Or like a regular who comes in every night. Always at the same time. Always choosing the same corner. Ethan Caldwell became something of a calm shadow at bean and brush. Not demanding. Never flashy. Just there. And for Maya, his presence began to feel like a hush in her storm. Hot beverage, a routine of comfort. It became a rhythm. 6:43 p.m. Dorshim. Coffee order. Same seat. And Maya, the barista turned phantom artist, found herself timing her day around him. She didn't mean to. She didn't plan it. But in a life that had long run out of color, this quiet man became a brushstroke of something warm. Some nights they talked. Some nights they simply exchanged smiles. But every night, it felt like a page turning, even if no one said the chapter had begun. Artist palette, unpainted truths. On one rainy evening, Maya stood at the bar, elbows resting against the scuffed wood, staring at her own painting. The canvas was unfinished, wild in its emotion, raw with heartbreak and unmet dreams. Ethan caught her gaze, then quietly asked, "Why did you stop painting?" Maya hesitated, then gave the kind of half-smile people offer when too much truth sits behind their teeth. "I thought art would save me, but I lost the person I loved because I loved the canvas more." Silence followed, but not the awkward kind. The kind you sit in when what's been said deserves air. Ethan's voice softened. Maybe your pain just hasn't found its audience yet. The words stunned her, not because they were poetic, but because they were true, and they came from someone who clearly carried his own quiet suffering. Pencil the sketchbook moment. Later that evening, as Maya left her sketchbook open on the bar, forgetting she had earlier drawn a single tear-soaked eye surrounded by blooming flowers, Ethan glanced at the page. He didn't touch it, didn't critique it. He slid a new colored pencil across the counter toward her and said only 7 words. "Don't leave your masterpiece unfinished, Maya." Her hand tightened around the pencil. That moment, gentle, so small no one would remember it but her, lit a fuse in her soul. He didn't just see art, he saw her. Girl, the little artist. That same week, Ethan began to mention someone else during their talks. Emma, my daughter. She's 10, shy as morning light, but she paints anyway, even when she thinks she's terrible at it. Maya's heart stirred. Tell her to keep painting, she whispered. There's always someone who sees beauty in your mess, even if you don't. Ethan nodded, but went quiet. Maya saw something flicker in him, like a flame nearly put out by years of grief and guilt. Framed picture a painting from Emma. One rainy night, Ethan walked in carrying a rolled canvas. He said nothing at first, just handed it to her. Emma painted this. She asked for your thoughts. Maya unrolled it slowly. The painting was delicate. A sunlit garden, rich with color and hope, brush strokes hesitant but dreaming. The kind of painting that only comes from an innocent yet burdened heart. Maya's eyes glistened as she stared. She has a beautiful soul, she said softly. The kind that speaks through color. Outside the cafe, off to the side, invisible through the glass, Emma stood, clutching her dad's hand, having just overheard every word. A small, shy smile bloomed, bolder than anything her brushes ever painted. Candle secrets in the dim light. Maya and Ethan started lingering longer after hours. As the world outside grew quieter, their voices became more honest. Maya confessed how her ex-boyfriend left her after she abandoned everything for art, thinking passion would be enough. He said, I knew how to paint, but not how to love, she whispered. Ethan looked into her soul, eyes brimming with memory. I used to bury myself in work too. After my wife died, I thought building Luxware was the only way to survive. But in doing that, I forgot to just be there. Be a dad. Be human. Maya stood still with his pain in the air between them, like a canvas waiting for color. Coat the jacket and the magazine. A few days later, during another peaceful night in the cafe, Maya shivered against the draft creeping through the old windows. Ethan, without a word, slipped off his jacket and wrapped it around her. You'll need your hands steady, he said. You've got masterpieces to finish. They shared a smile. It was quieter than a kiss, but somehow it meant just as much. Then it happened. As she reached for her bag behind the counter, the corner of a glossy magazine peeked out. Luxware CEO Ethan Caldwell, the man behind the empire. Her breath caught. She looked up, straight into his eyes. He didn't deny it, didn't pretend, just nodded sadly. I wanted you to know me without that title. Maya stood frozen, words caught like thorns in her throat. She wasn't just caught off guard. She was hurt, not because he was famous, but because he didn't trust her with the truth. Broken heart, the distance grows. After that night, Ethan didn't return for 3 evenings. Bean and brush felt empty, stripped of something intimate. Maya told herself it didn't matter, told herself it was never real. But at night, she clutched the note he once left. Your coffee may be messy, but your art is not. Felt heavier now, heavier and hollow. Telephone receiver, a father's call, a barista's doubts. On the 4th night, Maya overheard him again, this time outside, after returning briefly to grab takeout. Ethan's voice was soft, worried. Liam's sick. I'm staying home for a few nights. He's asking for bedtime stories. Needs me. Hearing him with his kids twisted something inside her. Not in jealousy, but in longing. Was this man real, or just too good to be true? Paintbrush painting doubt. Later, in her apartment, Maya sat before a half-finished canvas. She dipped her brush into blue and pulled back. The canvas looked like what she felt inside, half-started, full of doubt, broken in the middle. What if all his kindness was pity? What if she was back in the same story again? Just better written. She called Sarah her best friend. He's a CEO, Sarah, and I'm just a girl who wipes counters. How do I know this is real? Sarah's voice struck through her heart like lightning through fog. Maya, listen to me. He looks at you like you're already a masterpiece. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Maya bit her lip, blinked back tears. For the first time, she wanted to believe it was true. The city breathed a little softer the next morning. For most, it was another ordinary day. Clouds hung heavy over Seattle. The streets gleamed silver with morning dew, and the world moved like it always did, unbothered. But for Maya, the barista with golden hair and a heart threaded with fear and paint, something inside her was shifting. It had been days since Ethan disappeared, since that magazine revealed the truth, since layers of trust began to feel like walls again. But now, she wasn't sure if she was angry or just scared. Enveloped the card that spoke louder than silence. The bell above the cafe door didn't ring for Ethan that day. Instead, Sarah arrived. Maya's closest friend, truth-teller, and the rare kind of person who said the hard things with soft hands. She sat down at the counter, her grin held back by restraint. "Something came for you," she said, sliding a small envelope across the table. Maya stared at it. The writing was neater than printed labels, familiar in its simplicity. Tearing it open, her breath hitched. A card. Just 3 lines. "I miss your worst espresso, and even more, your best silences. Ethan." No signature, no apology, just honesty. She didn't cry. She smiled. The kind of bittersweet smile people wear when hope and doubt mix too closely to tell apart. Artist palette, a gallery's door opens. Later that afternoon, Maya's phone buzzed again. This time with news she never expected. A local gallery had chosen her artwork for an upcoming exhibition. The kind of miracle she'd long stopped dreaming about. But the excitement was tangled, because she knew who submitted those paintings quietly, without her permission. Ethan, that same man who claimed to see her for who she was, but also backed away when truth brushed too close. A gesture of support, wrapped in secrets. Was it love or condescension? Did he believe in her or feel responsible for her? Was she rising or being rescued? Paintbrush between canvas and clarity. That night, Maya sat in her studio apartment, surrounded by unfinished canvases and half-filled sketchbooks. She stared at a blank page, pencil hovering, breath frozen, as memories of Ethan bloomed in her chest. His kindness, his voice, his daughter's painting, his laugh when coffee spilled. The page slowly filled with form. She began to sketch him. Not the CEO, not the man from the magazine cover, just Ethan. The man with tired eyes and a heart full of carefully hidden pain. As she drew, her lines grew more certain. And that's when her phone buzzed again. Telephone receiver, will you teach her? No text. A call. Ethan. His voice, cautious, like someone who'd knocked and hoped the door might open. Emma wants to learn how to paint, he said quietly. She asked for you. Would you teach her? Maya placed a hand on her chest, feeling the warmth rise through armor she thought she needed. I'd love to, she answered. And in that tiny sentence, a bridge reappeared between their worlds. Woman artist palette more than a teacher. The next morning, bean and brush glowed brighter than usual. Not because the cafe changed, because Maya had. For the first time in weeks, she walked with purpose. A weight had lifted, not because everything made sense now, but because she'd chosen something braver than certainty. Trust. Ethan arrived that evening with Emma and Liam in tow. Emma hid partially behind her dad's arm. Liam wore a red cape made from an old towel and announced, I'm here to protect the hot chocolates. Maya chuckled. Something like home filled the air. Girl canvas, confidence, and connection. In a small corner of the cafe, Maya laid out brushes and a canvas. Emma slowly approached, hands clasped tightly together. "I want to paint," she said softly, "but I'm not good like you." Maya knelt beside her, taking the girl's hand gently. Good doesn't exist in art. Art isn't about being right. It's about being real. Emma looked up, cautious tears forming. And Maya knew this was the version of herself she never got as a kid. This was why she came back to art. Sneezing face a glimpse behind the mask. Later that evening, Ethan stepped away to the nursery where Liam had curled up with a cough. Maya walked past the hallway quietly and paused. There he was, rocking his son slowly, carefully, exhaustion radiating from every line in his face. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Thinking she couldn't hear, he answered it softly. "I don't know how to tell her. If she finds out about the lawsuit, everything I'm still ashamed of, she'll walk away." When he hung up, he sat in silence, gently brushing Liam's damp hair back. Maya stood frozen, and suddenly, the truth didn't scare her, because he was scared too. Collision, the confrontation. The next evening, as Liam napped peacefully and Emma painted butterflies with frosting-colored wings, Maya and Ethan sat on opposite ends of the couch. The silence between them was thick, not hostile, but dense with emotion. Finally, Maya spoke, her voice barely steady. "Why did you hide all this from me? The magazine, the gallery submission, the lawsuit." Ethan leaned forward, his thumbs twisting together. "Because I'm afraid." His voice cracked. "Afraid that if I showed you the cracks, you'd leave. That you'd see someone who failed. Not just in business, but as a father, as a person." Maya felt her own tears rise. Slowly, she reached for his hand. "I'm scared too," she whispered. "Not of you, but of believing someone could stay." They sat there, fingertips touching, not with romance but with understanding. Pencil hero for a new heart. From the table nearby, Emma appeared holding a simple sketch, childish in execution, but perfect in meaning. It showed Maya, wearing a superhero cape, smiling under a painted sun. "I drew you," Emma said shyly, "because Liam says you're better at stories than Dad." Maya laughed, really laughed. A sound that melted Ethan's armor more than anything else ever could. In that moment, something shifted. She was no longer repairing her world alone. She was helping build theirs, together. Some stories don't end when people fall in love. They begin when love becomes something bigger, when it extends to bruised pasts, tiny hands, late-night doubts, and second chances you never thought you deserved. For Maya, what started as spilled espresso and buried paints had now bloomed into something sacred. And for Ethan, who once believed his empire was the only thing holding him together, he was learning that love could lead where success never could, home. The gallery night. The gallery lights glowed softly that evening, their warmth bouncing off Maya's paintings like halos of emotion. For the first time, her work wasn't confined to napkins, sketchbooks, or cafe walls. It now stood tall, framed, and surrounded by murmurs of admiration, guests lingering at each canvas, drawn not by fame, but by feeling. Each painting was a window into her. Shadows of pain, splashes of courage, muted regrets painted over with bold strokes of healing. Behind it all, Ethan watched in silence, not with the pride of a man who gave her wings, but awe for the beautiful truth. She had always known how to fly. Enveloped the secret scholarship. She didn't know that just days earlier, Ethan had applied, in secret, for a renewal of her art scholarship. She hadn't asked. He hadn't told. He only knew the way her eyes lit up when she painted, and how the world needed voices like hers in color. So when the acceptance email arrived, tears filled her eyes. Not because someone saved her, but because someone finally believed in her. Adult Artist Palette, a new chapter at Luxwear. Weeks later, Maya walked through the sleek, glass-wrapped hallways of Luxwear, not as a guest, not as the girlfriend, but as something much more unexpected, art consultant. It didn't come with red carpet treatment. It came with responsibility, self-doubt, and long nights filled with imposter syndrome. But with time, the company's branding began to shift, subtle patterns in product design, Window displays echoing emotion. Campaigns painted in her palette. Employees took notice. So did the clients. Ethan never boasted about her role. He saw her as a partner, not a charity case. And that's when Maya realized this was no longer about what she came from. It was about what she was building now. Teddy bear at home, soft hearts grew softer. Meanwhile, Ethan was still learning how to answer 2 a.m. daddy calls beneath superhero blankets, how to soothe Emma's self-doubt when her paintings smudged unevenly, how to be present, and now, more than ever, how to let Maya in. One evening, she sat beside Liam, guiding his wide brush strokes across a blank canvas. It was messy, chaotic blues and reds, but intentional. "What are you painting, bud?" Maya asked gently. "Our heart," he said proudly. "'Cause you're in it now." Her whole body stilled. That innocent sentence knocked down every last wall she had left inside. Man briefcase faces in the boardroom, but not everything was gentle. In a sharp-angled boardroom, filled with suits and suspicion, Ethan Caldwell stood before his partners, defending his recent choices, namely her. Maya's presence at Luxwear had gotten attention. Art was hard to quantify. Emotion didn't look good on profit margins. A man in pinstripes scoffed. "She's great for your kids, Ethan. But what kind of ROI do brushstrokes bring?" Ethan's jaw stiffened. This wasn't about proving Maya's worth. This was about battling the narrow lens of people who'd only ever seen success as numbers. He clicked the remote. Slides flicked across the wall, recent campaigns, engagement stats, social media buzz, all tied to Maya's influence. Then he said, "Maya didn't just color our products. She revived our soul." And the room, hardened and calculating, went quiet. For once, the numbers couldn't fully explain the impact. But they didn't need to. She had already changed them. Deciduous tree, the park of promises. Later, at a nearby park, leaves rustled and laughter echoed. The world had slowed. Ethan knelt beside Liam, tying his untamed shoelace as the boy wiggled with impatience. He looked up and caught Maya's gaze across the grass. She smiled. He didn't need to say it. She knew. "You're not part of our life. You are it." Moments later, Emma tugged at Maya's coat, quiet and sincere. "Can I be a painter like you one day?" she whispered. "Will you teach me forever?" Maya knelt, brushing hair from the girl's brow. "Only if you promise to teach me how to be brave," she whispered back. Christmas tree, a December to remember. As December melted into glittering lights and cold hands tucked into fleece gloves, Luxwear launched its holiday celebration, centered around family and art. For the first time, the lobby became a canvas. There stood Maya, Emma, and Liam, painting their vision of family on a wall-sized mural. Brushes flew, colors danced, laughter warmed the marble floors, paint splattered, creativity bloomed. Emma painted hearts. Liam drew rocket ships. Maya added stardust to the sky, a sky large enough to include dreams too big for words. Ethan watched, heart full, eyes misted. He didn't see a brand. He saw his home, wrapped gift to Christmas in the square. Later that evening, they walked hand in hand through Seattle's Holiday Square. Snow fell in glittery whispers. Thousands of tiny lights blinked above them like stars blinking back. Just the four of them. No boardrooms, no coffee counters, no masks, just family. Ethan stopped. He reached into his coat and pulled out a tiny wrapped box. Inside, a simple wooden picture frame. Empty. "Paint the next chapter," he said, voice thick. "With us." Tears rose in Maya's eyes. She didn't need to read poetry to grasp the meaning. His voice cracked as he added, "You gave me and the kids our second chance. Not as a CEO, Maya, but as a father, a person, a man you made real." Maya didn't speak. She couldn't. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him. Not a fairy tale kiss. A real one. Messy. Honest. Timeless. Camera with flash, family. Framed. Back at home, Emma handed Maya a drawing. For stick figures. One woman in the center, arms around them all. A cape gently fluttering behind her. "You're my superhero?" Emma whispered. "Mom!" Maya froze. Her heart bloomed bigger than her body. She bent low, folded Emma into her arms, tears falling like brushstrokes down her cheeks. That one word, Mom, rewrote every painful chapter she'd once believed permanent. Artist Palette, their mission begins. Months later, Ethan and Maya co-founded Art for All, a foundation dedicating time and resources to children's creativity, particularly those who had experienced loss, insecurity, or were marginalized by the world that expected them to succeed before they had a chance to be seen. It was more than charity. It was healing. It was family on canvas. It was pain made beautiful. Sunrise over mountains, the masterpiece. Not every day was easy, but every day was real. There were school lunches, spilled paint, board meetings, tiny hands tugging for attention, late-night tears, and mornings that felt too much. But through it all, Maya and Ethan stood side by side, their lives no longer haunted by old portraits of who they were, only inspired by the masterpiece they were painting now. Dove final scene, a story worth keeping. Years later, in a cozy room filled with art supplies, coffee mugs, and oversized bean bags, Maya tells Liam a bedtime story, not about dragons or treasure, but about a superhero who once spilled espresso and accidentally found her home in the most unlikely of places. Outside the window, stars blinked just like the cafe lights once did, and Ethan smiled from the hallway, finally at peace. Orange Heart, this has been True Movement Stories, a story about second chances, unlikely love, healing through art, and the family you find when you thought you'd lost everything. Clapperboard if this story touched your heart. Bell subscribe to True Movement Stories. Speech balloon share in the comments. What's your masterpiece in progress? Outbox tray and send this to someone who needs a reminder. Their story isn't over. Not even close.